Humans don't need machines to define us. We forge our own fate.
Welcome to the Vault of Tales, a treasure trove of science fiction stories. Today, we embark on the journey of Lysa, Elliot, and Maya in the epic tale, Shattered Sandglass. On the desolate sands of Port Helios, a fugitive engineer and her gifted daughter uncover the Sandglass, an ancient machine that fractures reality itself. Hunted by the ruthless Helios Dominion and shadowed by the enigmatic Time Reader, they fight not just for survival, but for humanity's unshackled destiny. What secrets await beyond the stars? Let's get started. Dust swirled in relentless eddies beneath a blood-red sky, where sunlight choked beneath a shroud of thick, oppressive clouds. Port Helios, 3172, a brutal desert world teetering on the edge of tightly controlled interstellar lanes. Here, ruined, cities rose from the sand like the forgotten skeletons of giants, their faint neon glow flickering through a haze of endless grit. A storm was brewing, an electromagnetic tempest. The wind's howl mingled with jagged violet lightning that streaked the heavens, whispering secrets of a buried past. This wasn't a place for the faint-hearted. It was a refuge for outcasts, exiles forsaken by the stars, and lawless scavengers carving out survival. For Lysa, though, it was her last chance to breathe free. A battered cargo hauler groaned as it touched down on a sand-choked landing pad, its engines roaring one final time before falling silent. Lysa stepped out, her heavy boots crunching into the scorching red dunes. She tugged her hood low, shadowing a sharp, weary face. One hand gripped tight the small fingers of Maya, her 8-year-old daughter, whose bright eyes gleamed like twin jewels amidst the dust storm. "Don't stray from me," Lysa murmured, her voice rough but steady. "Not for a second." Break. Time when they weren't mere drifters. Lysa had once been a prodigy among the engineers of the Helios Dominion, a sprawling empire that ruled hundreds of star systems with an iron fist. She'd crafted machines that bent space itself, coaxing life from dead cells. But that life shattered when she unearthed a forbidden secret, an ancient technology so potent the Dominion would raise worlds to keep it hidden. Now, she was a fugitive, a hunted soul, not for what she knew, but for what coursed through Maya's veins, a rare genetic mutation born from experiments Lysa herself had helped pioneer. The Dominion wanted the girl, and they never relented. The landing pad buzzed with chaos. Smugglers barked prices through crackling loudspeakers, while hollow-eyed migrants dragged tattered belongings in silence. Lysa guided Maya through the throng, her gaze darting, hunting for any hint of the Dominion's spies, figures cloaked in dusty robes or lurking behind mirrored visors. "It stinks here," Maya muttered, her nose wrinkling at the acrid tang. "Of oil and scorched metal. Deal with it," Lysa shot back, her tone firm yet softening as she glanced at her daughter. "We've got no other choice." They halted before a ramshackle repair shop, its rusted sign barely legible, Fraser's Fix. The metal door creaked as a man emerged. Elliot Fraser, tall and broad, with a scruffy beard and hands stained by grease and scars. He cut an imposing figure. His tattered leather coat flapped in the wind, but his eyes were razor-sharp, piercing through anyone's facade. "Who are you?" Elliot growled, his deep voice carrying no malice, only wariness. "I don't take strangers." Lysa lifted her chin, meeting his stare without flinching. "We need shelter. I can pay with skills, fixing machines, whatever you need." Elliot raised an eyebrow, his gaze flicking from Lysa to Maya and back. "Skills, huh? Out here, skills won't save you when the Dominion comes knocking." Before Lysa could reply, a strange hum cut through the air, the whine of an approaching sand skiff. A gaunt, blind old man stepped off, his skeletal hands clutching a metal helm. The crowd parted, murmuring of the Foreseer, an eccentric survivor of decades on Port Helios. He shuffled straight toward Maya, his milky eyes seeming to bore into her. His voice rasped, trembling. The girl's eyes, they'll shatter the sand and awaken the dark. Lysa yanked Maya close, her heart pounding. Elliot frowned but waved them in. Get inside, before that old fool drags trouble our way. The metal door slammed shut behind them, muting the wind's howl. But Lysa knew this peace was fleeting. The storm, outside and within her, was closing in faster than ever. Sand still fell, and somewhere in the shadows, the hunters tightened their noose. A harsh clang of metal echoed as the door slammed shut behind Lysa and Maya, severing the storm's piercing wail outside. Inside Elliot Fraser's shop, the air hung thick with the stench of scorched oil and rusted steel. Neon lights dangled from the ceiling, their feeble flicker casting jagged shadows across tool racks coated in red sand dust. Lysa released Maya's hand, letting the girl lean against a scarred workbench. Her sharp eyes swept the room, hunting for any hint of danger lurking in the corners. But it wasn't a threat from beyond that stopped her cold. It was a faint slit in the floor, where a pale violet glow seeped out like a tear in the fabric. Of reality itself. What's that? Lysa asked, her voice cutting through the silence, her hand instinctively clutching a screwdriver snatched from the table. Elliot spun around, tension flashing in his eyes. Don't touch it. It's not your business. But before he could close the distance, Lysa knelt, her fingers brushing the icy edge of the hidden hatch. With a gentle push, it sprang open, revealing a narrow staircase plunging into the earth. The air below was frigid, a stark contrast to the searing heat above. As Lysa descended the final step, she froze, her breath catching in her chest. Before her loomed the Sandglass, a colossal ancient machine, thrice the height of a man, pulsing with a faint violet light like ghostly flames. Massive metal rings spun slowly around its core, etched with strange runes, resembling a cosmic clock ticking down to an incomprehensible end. Maya slipped silently to her mother's side, her wide eyes reflecting the machine's glow. "It's beautiful," she whispered, her innocent tone laced with an odd weight, as if she sensed something Lysa couldn't grasp. Elliot appeared behind them, his voice dropping low, almost trembling. "I told you not to come down here." He paused, drawing a ragged breath. "I worked for the Helios Dominion once, an engineer like you. They tasked me with studying this, the Sandglass. They claimed it could resurrect life, pull the dead back from nothing. Ordemir through other realities," I pushed back. "So they wiped my mind and dumped me on this galactic fringe." Lysa turned to him, her gaze icy. "If they erased your memories, how do you still know?" Elliot let out a dry, brittle laugh, like sand slipping through fingers. "Not everything, fragments, mostly. Enough to know this thing's dangerous. The Dominion didn't ban it out of mercy. They were terrified of what it could do in the wrong hands." Break. Time once, unable to resist, Lysa stepped closer, her fingers grazing the cold metal surface of the Sandglass. In that instant, a violet flare erupted, so fierce she stumbled back. The air shivered, and an image flickered into being, hazy as a dream, yet piercingly vivid. It was her in another reality, cradling Maya amid the ruins of a shattered city. Explosions roared, and Maya's desperate cry rang out, "Mom!" The vision dissolved as swiftly as it came. Lysa crumpled to her knees, gasping. "What was that?" Elliot grabbed her shoulders, hauling her up. "I warned you!" It's not just a machine, it's a gateway, and you just cracked it open. Above them, the distant roar of engines rumbled through the layers of sand and steel encasing Port Helios. Maya's head snapped up, her eyes narrowing. "Someone's coming," she whispered, her voice quivering. Elliot gritted his teeth, his hand tightening around the grip of an old pistol at his hip. "Dominion spies. They've tracked you down." The Sandglass pulsed faintly, as if alive, waiting. Lysa straightened, her hand clamping around Maya's. She didn't know what this machine truly was, or why it showed her that haunting vision. But one thing was certain: the secret she'd uncovered in the Dominion's labs, the one that forced her to flee, was staring her in the face. And now it had dragged them into a fight they couldn't escape. The roar of engines tore through the night over Port Helios, louder and closer than ever. Beneath the faint violet flicker of the Sandglass, still pulsing in the bunker, Lysa felt a chill snake down her spine. She whipped around to Elliot, her gaze sharp as a blade. "We're out of time." Elliot nodded, shoving his pistol into its holster with a swift motion before yanking a dust-caked tarp from a corner of the bunker. Beneath it sat a weathered sandskiff. Its rusted frame coughed black smoke, but the spiked wheels looked tough enough to slice through the desert. "Get in," he barked, his voice hoarse with grit and strain. "Stay here, and we're dead." Maya clung to her mother's hand, her wide eyes flaring as the first explosion rocked the shop above, a plasma round slamming into the roof, shaking the bunker to its core. Lysa hoisted the girl aboard, then vaulted into the back, gripping the skiff's edge as Elliot floored the throttle. The skiff burst from the bunker, carving through the thick red sand like a knife through shadow. Outside, the electromagnetic storm had swallowed Port Helios whole. Brilliant violet lightning danced across the sky, illuminating shattered streets and panicked crowds scattering like ash in the wind, but nothing could drown out the thunder of warships. 3 armored Dominion skimmers, emblazoned with the Helios sigil, streaking toward them from the horizon. "Who are they?" Maya shouted, her voice nearly lost in the howling gale. "Aldrin Voss's mercenaries." Elliot growled, his hands white-knuckled on the wheel as the skiff swerved past a crumbling ruin. "The Dominion's right hand, cold, ruthless, and relentless. If he's here, they know you've got something they want." Lysa didn't answer. She knew exactly what that something was. Maya, her blood carrying the mutation the Dominion craved. No time for words now. She tightened her grip on her daughter, her eyes locked on the dark shapes closing in behind. The chase dragged them through the desolate streets of Port Helios. Crooked buildings swayed in the storm, their neon signs splintering under plasma blasts. Elliot drove with the reckless abandon of a man with nothing left to lose, weaving through tight alleys and dodging the half-buried wrecks of ancient starships. But Voss's ships were faster, stronger. A laser beam slashed the air, ripping apart a wall beside them, sending debris flying in a deadly hail. "We can't keep running," Lysa yelled, her hands fumbling in her pockets for anything to wield as a weapon. Elliot gritted his teeth and yanked the wheel hard, sending the skiff plummeting down a steep dune. Ahead, the sand parted like a gaping maw, unveiling the entrance to Helix 9, a research outpost buried centuries ago. Towering stone pillars, etched with cryptic runes, jutted from the desert like the fingers of a lost civilization, reaching for the storm-racked sky. The skiff skidded to a halt before the outpost's rusted gate. Elliot leapt out, dragging Lysa, and Maya with him. "Inside, it's our only shot." They darted through the gate, just as another blast erupted behind them, rattling the desert itself. Within Helix 9, the air was cold and still, a stark reprieve from the chaos. Outside, Faintly glowing moss clung to mottled metal walls, guiding them deeper into the dark. Lysa glanced back through a crack in the gate. The warships had landed, and a tall figure emerged from the dust. Aldrin Voss. His stride was slow, deliberate, a predator certain its prey had nowhere left to run. His helm glinted with violet lightning, and his voice, icy and amplified, cut through the storm. "Lysa Rowe, hand over what I want, or I'll level this place." Elliot tugged Lysa further into the outpost. "He's not bluffing, but we've got an edge. He doesn't know what we're standing on yet." Sand still fell outside, mingling with the wind's wail. But within Helix 9, an ancient secret waited, and Lysa knew their flight had only just begun. Darkness swallowed them whole, as Lysa, Elliot, and Maya raced through the icy corridors of Helix 9. The distant blasts from outside faded, replaced by the hollow echo of their boots on pitted metal floors. A faint glow from luminescent moss on the walls guided them to a vast chamber where the air felt heavier, as if time itself had stalled here centuries ago. At the chamber's heart stood the Sandglass, distinct yet eerily familiar from the machine in Elliot's bunker. This one was grander, more imposing, its massive metal rings spinning slowly, emitting a pale violet light like the universe's faltering pulse. Ancient runes carved into its surface shimmered, whispering a tale no living soul could decipher. Lysa halted, her breath steadying as she stared at it. "This is it," she murmured, "the thing the Dominion's desperate to bury." Maya, drawn by an unseen force, edged closer. Her small hands trembled as they brushed the machine's central core. In that instant, a violent violet flare erupted, bathing the room in light. The metal walls quaked, and before them, the air shattered like glass, unveiling thousands of fractured realities, worlds in splinters, overlapping in a chaotic breathtaking. Mosaic Elliot staggered back, shielding his eyes from the blinding glow. "Maya, stop it!" he shouted, his voice drowned by the machine's roar. Then a nightmare vision emerged from the light. A colossal entity, its form undefined save for a single cosmic eye, hovering in a void of pitch-black space. It didn't move, didn't speak, yet its presence pressed down on their minds like an invisible mountain. The Time Reader! The name flashed unbidden into Lysa's thoughts, its origin a mystery. Maya crumpled to her knees, her eyes wide, mirroring the machine's glow. "It sees me," she whispered, her voice shaking not with fear but with awe. Elliot lunged forward, yanking her back, panic flooding his gaze. He sank to the floor, clutching his head as if unseen claws tore at his mind. "I remember," he rasped, his voice breaking. "It's not just a machine. It's a doorway to something that shouldn't exist. I saw it in the Dominion's labs. They called it the Sandglass, but it's not ours. It's older than humanity, older than the stars." Lysa turned to him, her eyes cutting like steel. "Remember what? Speak!" He looked up, his gaze clouded by memory. They wanted to harness it, control reality itself. But every test, something stared back. And now, it's awake. Lysa's eyes dropped to Maya, her heart tightening as a horrifying truth crystallized. The genetic experiments she'd worked on for the Dominion, the secret. Projects she'd rejected and fled, weren't just mutations. They'd linked Maya to this, to the Sandglass, to the Time Reader. Her daughter's unique gift wasn't chance. It was the key the Dominion hungered for. "Maya," Lysa whispered, kneeling beside her. "What do you feel?" The girl lifted her head, her eyes aglow with violet sparks. "It knows me, Mom. It calls me." Before Lysa could respond, a deep, resonant voice rumbled, not in the air, but within their skulls. "You have seen me," it intoned, slow and fathomless, an echo from a bottomless abyss. "I will come." The Sandglass pulsed wildly, as if alive, reacting to their presence. Elliot rose, gripping his pistol tight. "We've roused something, and I'd bet Voss feels it too." Outside, the growl of warship engines swelled, closer than ever. But now, the threat wasn't just the Dominion. Something vast, older than time, was stirring in the cosmic dark. And it had locked its gaze upon them. The violet light of the Sandglass flickered in the vast chamber of Helix 9, a constant reminder that the door they'd pried open wouldn't shut so easily. Lysa pulled Maya close, her steely gaze fixed on Elliot, who stood rooted, his trembling hand clutching his pistol. Outside, the rumble of Aldrin Voss's warships grew louder, closer, a predator's heartbeat tightening its grip around them. Elliot drew a deep breath, his eyes flickering with fear laced. With resolve. "I could run," he said, his voice low but firm, "but if I leave you two here, I'd never forgive myself." He turned sharply, striding toward an ancient control panel caked in red dust. "We need time, and I know how to buy it." Lysa's brow furrowed, but she held her tongue. She sensed the shift in him, a broken man, once crushed by the Dominion, now clawing his way back from the brink of life and death. Elliot's scarred fingers danced across the panel with the precision of a seasoned engineer. The dim screen flared to life, displaying cryptic lines of code only he could unravel. "Helix 9's more than a ruin," he said, eyes locked on his work. "It's got defenses, built by whoever made this place. If I can hack them, we'll hold Aldrin off, for a little while at least." A deafening blast shook the chamber, the entrance trembling under impact. Metal clashed and wind screamed from the storm beyond, weaving a symphony of chaos. Maya pressed against her mother, but her violet-tinged eyes shimmered oddly, as if she heard something beyond their reach. Suddenly a shrill whine pierced the air from deep within Helix 9. From cracks in the walls, ancient laser turrets emerged, their barrels glowing crimson. They fired in unison, beams slicing through the air, targeting Aldrin's forces storming the gate. Outside, screams and the screech of torn metal rang out. Proof Elliot had succeeded, if only. "Hold for a moment?" "Done," he panted, wiping sweat from his brow. "But they'll be back. Aldrin doesn't quit." Lysa stepped beside him, her gaze shifting to the walls. In the turret's red glow, she spotted carvings etched into the metal, identical to the time reader they'd glimpsed through the Sandglass. One stood out, a vast circle framing an eye, beneath it a faded inscription. She whispered, translating each word, "The key's bearer will shatter or save." She turned to Maya, her heart clenching. "The key," she murmured. "It's you, isn't it?" Maya looked up, her violet eyes deeper than ever. "I don't know, Mom, but I feel it's waiting for me to do something." Elliot approached, eyeing the inscription skeptically. "If you're right, the Dominion's not just after you for betrayal. They want Maya, what she can do with this thing. But why? To break reality, or mend it?" Lysa didn't answer immediately. Her mind drifted to her days in the Dominion. Labs, genetic trials she'd thought harmless, until she realized they tied to something bigger, older than humanity itself. Maya wasn't just her daughter. She was the product of a design even Lysa hadn't fully grasped. The laser fire quieted, but the air in Helix 9 remained thick with tension. Outside, Aldrin's forces had retreated, for now, but Lysa knew they were only biding. "Their time." Elliot rested a hand on her shoulder, his voice soft yet resolute. "Whatever that thing is, the time reader or anything else, we've got to master it before Aldrin does. You're not alone in this." Sand still fell outside, carried by the wind's wail and distant clangs of metal. But within Helix 9, 3 souls, a forgotten engineer, a fugitive, and a child holding the universe's key, had forged an uneasy alliance, and they knew the real battle was only beginning. Deep within Helix 9, the air trembled with the distant growl of metal, a warning that their stolen time had run dry. Lysa, Elliot, and Maya stood shoulder to shoulder, their resolute gazes fixed on the chamber's main entrance, where the Sandglass spun on, its pale violet light a beacon piercing the dark. They'd made their choice. No more running, only facing the storm of fate barreling toward them, unstoppable. A thunderous blast rocked the station. The ancient metal gate shattered into fragments, and from the swirling haze of red sand and smoke, a towering figure emerged. Aldrin Voss, Supreme Commander of the Helios Dominion, materialized like a spectre in gleaming black armor, reflecting the storm's violet lightning. Behind him trailed the Reaper's cabal, masked figures with glowing red eyes, their plasma blades glinting coldly in their hands. He paused, his steel-cold stare sweeping the room, locking onto Maya. "Lysa Rowe," Aldrin's voice cut through, deep and sharp as a blade slicing the air. "Your flight ends here." Lysa stepped forward, shoving Maya behind her. "What do you want with her?" She snarled, clutching a metal rod scavenged from the floor. Not a true weapon, but enough to signal she wouldn't yield. Aldrin's dry laugh rasped like sand through clenched fists. He raised a hand, and a holographic projection flickered to life mid-air, the Sandglass spinning, violet energy streaming through its rings. "This isn't just a machine," he said, his tone steady yet menacing. "It's the key to reshape reality, erase the Empire's enemies, rewrite history, to our will. And that girl," he pointed at Maya, "is the final piece to unlock it fully." Elliot clenched his jaw, his grip tightening on his pistol. "You're insane, Voss. No one gets to toy with reality." Aldrin turned to him, his eyes dripping with contempt. "Fraser, I remember you, the traitor who ran instead of serving. You're irrelevant now. The Cabal will see this through." With a flick of his wrist, his minions advanced, tiny drones buzzing around the Sandglass, casting blue beams to sync with its systems. The Sandglass flared wildly, its light painting Aldrin's silhouette like a monstrous shadow in the sandstorm, towering and fearsome. A piercing whine filled the air as the drones finished their task, the machine locked down by the Dominion's advanced AI, its rings slowing, the violet glow dimming as if strangled. "It's over," Aldrin declared, his voice frigid. "Hand over the girl, or I'll tear this place apart to take her." But Lysa didn't freeze. She lunged for a nearby console, her hands flying over the ancient keys in a dance of precision. "Think your AI outsmarts humanity?" she growled, her eyes blazing with the fire of a genius who'd once shaken the Dominion. "I built systems like this before you even held a gun." Code surged through her mind like a river. Memories of lab nights, endless machines, and the betrayal that set her on this path. She hacked the Sandglass, shattering the AI's lock with raw human intellect. The rings flared back to life, violet light blazing brighter than ever, blasting Aldrin's drones into sparking oblivion. Aldrin recoiled, a flicker of shock breaking his composure. "You!" he roared, but Lysa cut him off. "Humans. You don't need machines to define us," she said, her voice ringing through the chamber. "We forge our own fate, not you, not the Dominion." Elliot flashed a grim smile, raising his pistol at the Cabal. "Well said. What's the next move?" The Sandglass erupted in a fierce glow, a defiant challenge to Aldrin and his forces. Outside, the sandstorm howled, syncing with the machine's pulsing rhythm. The standoff had ignited, not just with their hunter, but with the very destiny they now held in their grasp. The violet light of the Sandglass blazed fiercely, flooding Helix 9 like a cosmic inferno no force could quench. Lysa stood at the console, her hands gliding over ancient keys, her eyes ablaze with unyielding resolve. Aldrin Voss and the Reaper's cabal recoiled from the machine's sudden surge, but his face remained an icy mask, unshaken. He knew what she was doing, and he had no intention of letting her win. "Lysa!" Elliot's shout cracked through the Sandglass's roar. He fired relentlessly at the cabal, plasma rounds slowing their advance but not stopping it. "You can't hold it forever." Lysa turned, her gaze locking with his for a fleeting second. "I don't need to hold it," she said, her voice steady and low. "I just need to stop him." She drew a deep breath, then slammed her hand down on the final key, a command to unleash the Sandglass's full power. Consequences. Be damned! The chamber shuddered violently as the machine's metal rings spun into a frenzied blur. Violet light morphed into a maelstrom, engulfing everything in its path. Before Lysa, the air splintered, and a vision emerged, a memory from another reality. She saw herself, cradling Maya in a lush green field, sunlight filtering gently through the girl's hair. "I'll always be with you," she whispered in that memory, her tone soft yet heavy with regret. "No matter the cost." The image faded, and Lysa smiled, a final tender smile of a mother ready to give everything. "Mom!" Maya's scream shattered the air, raw with tears. She lunged forward, small hands outstretched, but Elliot grabbed her, his arms locking tight despite his own trembling. "No, Maya, you can't!" The Sandglass's light swallowed Lysa, pulling her into the heart of the violet vortex. She vanished in a deafening blast, as if reality itself wailed at her loss. Maya collapsed to the floor, her sobs blending with the machine's whine echoing through Helix 9's frigid void. Then a colossal shadow flickered in the light, the cosmic eye of the Time Reader. It hovered, motionless, observing with a cold curiosity. No words, no sound, yet Elliot sensed an odd satisfaction radiating from it, as if Lysa's sacrifice was what it had awaited. Then, as swiftly as it appeared, it melted into the void, leaving a suffocating silence. The machine pressed on. From the Sandglass's core, a vortex of reality erupted, spreading like an invisible tide. Aldrin spun, roaring in fury as it engulfed him and the cabal. "No!" he bellowed, but his voice choked as his body fractured into shards of light, dissolving into the chaotic stream. His army, the white-masked Reapers, the sleek drones, met the same fate, erased as if they'd never been. As the vortex subsided, the Sandglass slowed, its violet glow dimming, until it stilled. Helix 9 fell quiet, save for Elliot's ragged breaths and Maya's soft weeping. He knelt beside her, a hand on her shoulder, but words failed him. No comfort could mend this wound. Lysa was gone, yet she'd achieved what the Dominion never foresaw, using human intellect and love to shatter their plans. Outside, the sandstorm keened through Port Helios, but within Helix 9 a new chapter dawned, one Maya and Elliot would have to write themselves, forged in blood and tears. Maya's sobs dwindled, dissolving into the oppressive silence blanketing Helix 9. Lysa was gone, leaving a void no words could fill. But the machine she'd unleashed refused to rest with her. The Sandglass quaked one last time, a piercing shriek echoing through the chamber, like the scream of a reality torn asunder. Elliot yanked Maya back, his eyes widening as the massive metal rings began to fracture. The room convulsed violently, mottled steel walls buckled, red sand pouring in like an unstoppable tide. The Sandglass shattered, its fragments scattering in a glittering storm, dissolving into dust beneath the fading violet glow. A final explosion roared, and Helix 9 collapsed, burying its ancient secrets under tons of sand and steel. Elliot clutched Maya tight, shielding her with his body as the last debris rained down. When the dust settled, they were alive. Breathing. Hard, clothes tattered but alive, Elliot rose, pulling Maya up with him. She stood silent, her tear-streaked eyes fixed on the rubble where her mother had vanished. But, as the Sandglass's light faded completely, he noticed something strange. Maya's eyes were no longer those of an ordinary child. They shimmered with other realities, violet flecks swirling in her pupils like lost stars in an endless cosmos. "Maya?" Elliot called, his voice rough with concern. "Are you okay?" She nodded slowly, her words a whisper on the wind. "I see everything, Elliot, other places, other times." Elliot knelt before her, hands on her shoulders. He peered into those eyes, and in that moment it hit him. Maya wasn't just a victim of the Sandglass. She'd become part of it, bearing the power Lysa had traded her. Life to awaken, a power to shatter or save, as the ancient carvings foretold. "I'll protect you," he said, his voice low but firm as an oath. "No matter what comes, I won't let anyone take you. Not the Dominion, not anything in this universe." Maya looked up, her violet eyes meeting his. "Mom trusted you," she murmured. "So do I." Elliot nodded, though his heart weighed heavy. He knew this vow wouldn't be easy. Maya was no longer just a child, and the power within her was a prize the galaxy would hunt. But he also knew Lysa's sacrifice wasn't for surrender. She'd passed them humanity's flame, unyielding will and boundless love to carry forward. They stepped from Helix 9's wreckage, red sand clinging to their boots and clothes. Outside, the electromagnetic storm had ebbed, the last violet sparks fading in the sky. Port Helios stretched before them eerily still, its blood-red heavens a stark reminder of what was lost and what remained to fight for. Elliot glanced at Maya, small yet bearing a legacy beyond his comprehension. "Where do we go now?" she asked, her voice faint but not broken. He stared toward the horizon where the desert's haze melded with the universe's dark expanse. "Somewhere far from here," he answered. "A place to uncover the truth. About you. The machine, everything. Your mom started this, we'll finish it." Sand drifted lightly beneath their feet, swept by the breeze. Helix 9 was gone, but Lysa's legacy endured, in Maya's eyes, in Elliot's vow, and in humanity's relentless spirit, ready to face whatever shadows lay ahead. The blood-red sky of Port Helios faded into a blur behind them as Elliot fired up the rickety sand skiff's engine. It growled feebly, like an aging beast clinging to life amidst the brutal desert. He sat at the helm, scarred hands gripping the wheel, his gaze fixed ahead where red dust melded with the shadowed horizon. Beside him, Maya leaned against the skiff's edge, her violet eyes staring outward. Quiet, but not empty. They'd left Helix 9 behind, left Lysa, but their journey was far from over. The skiff glided over towering dunes, its spiked wheels carving deep gashes into the crimson sand, leaving trails like wounds on the planet's skin. Elliot glanced at Maya, so small, yet bearing a power he couldn't fully fathom. He cleared his throat, breaking the weighty silence. "Remember that blind old man, the foreseer?" Maya nodded slowly, her eyes still on the desert. "He said my eyes would shatter the sand and wake the dark." Elliot let out a dry chuckle, the sound rough against the soft wind. "He got it half right, didn't he? but we're still here. Maybe fate's not as ironclad as he thought. He paused, doubt flickering in his eyes. Or maybe we haven't truly slipped its grasp. The question hung unanswered in the air. Elliot peered into the distance, where faint star clusters peeked through a sky darkening to inky black. He'd heard tales of a distant galaxy, a forgotten stretch of space where ancient legends claimed humanity once stood before empires rose. "If your mom was right," he said, his voice dropping low, "our real legacy, the human one, doesn't lie on Port Helios or in the Dominion's hands. It's out there." Maya turned to him, her violet eyes glinting like tiny stars. "What legacy, Elliot?" he sighed, running a hand through his sand-crusted hair. "I'm not sure. Maybe answers about the Sandglass. Maybe the truth about you, about what your mom gave her life to shield." Lysa believed humans aren't bound by fate. She proved it facing Aldrin. Now it's our turn to see how far she was right. Maya fell silent, but a faint smile ghosted her lips, the first since Lysa's loss. Small, fragile, yet it sparked a glimmer of hope in Elliot's chest. The skiff crossed a flat expanse where the husks of ancient starships jutted from the sand like bones of a bygone era. Engine light glinted off rusted metal, reflecting fragments of a lost age. Elliot pointed ahead. "We're leaving this rock. I know an old landing pad at the desert's edge. Might find an interstellar ship there. From there, we'll head to that galaxy. If answers exist, they're waiting for us." Maya nodded, her hands clutching her tattered coat. "I want to know," she whispered. "About Mom. About what's in me. I'm not afraid anymore." Elliot looked at her, his heart heavy yet eased. He didn't know what lay ahead, new hunters, darker secrets, or just the void's endless black. But one thing was clear. They weren't alone. Lysa's will lived on in this girl. In those eyes, reflecting other realities, in their shared resolve to press forward. Dust swirled in the wind, drifting softly onto the skiff's deck. Above, the sky unfurled, revealing alien constellations twinkling in the night. The old sand skiff churned onward, carrying two souls, a forgotten man and a girl holding the universe's key, into a journey without end. They weren't fleeing anymore. They were seeking, and in this vast cosmos, that was humanity's strength, ever questioning, ever reaching, defying every shadow. The sand skiff carved through the Port Helios desert, leaving long scars across the red dunes beneath the stars' dim glow. Its engine rumbled steadily, a weathered creature's breath, bearing Elliot and Maya away from Helix 9's painful echoes. The night sky stretched vast and cold above, but within them burned the ember Lysa had left, a flame of hope, questions, and an unbreakable will. Elliot sat silent at the helm, his tired eyes scanning the endless sands. He said nothing, but his mind churned about the Sandglass, the time reader, and the oath he'd sworn to Maya. Beside him, she rested her head against the rusted window frame, small hands clutching her tattered coat. The violet in her eyes flickered faintly, like the last sparks of a dying star. Then, abruptly, she froze. "Elliot," Maya whispered, her voice trembling, not from fear, but from an eerie sensation, as if she'd brushed something beyond this world. He turned, brow furrowing as she pressed a hand to the glass, her eyes widening, violet flaring bright. "I see it," she said, breath quickening. "It's there." "What?" Elliot asked, his grip tightening on the wheel, his tone dropping. With wary edge, Maya didn't answer at once. She stared out through the murky glass into the desert's deep dark. But what she saw wasn't sand or buried starship husks. It was a vision in her mind, stark and cold as a blade slicing reality. A colossal eye, identical to the time reader, hung in the void. motionless, silent, its weight crushed down. On her, a reminder they hadn't truly escaped the shadow Lysa had faced. "It's watching me," she murmured, her hand shaking against the glass. "Like at Helix 9. It's still there, tracking us." Elliot slammed the brakes, the skiff skidding across the sand before halting. He rushed to her side, grasping her shoulders, his eyes brimming with worry. "You sure? It's just a memory, Maya. The Sandglass is gone. That thing can't—" He stopped, caught by her gaze. The violet in her pupils spun faster, a tiny vortex reflecting other realities, shards of time and space the Sandglass had once unveiled. "It's not a memory," she said, her voice steadier than ever. "It's real, and it knows where we're going." Elliot stepped back, dragging a hand across his sand-streaked face, his pulse hammering. He peered out the window, but saw only dust swirling in the wind, veiling the pitch-black night. No eye, no entity, at least not to him. Yet he trusted her. If the time reader still lingered, their journey wasn't just a quest for truth. It was a race against something beyond human ken. "We won't stop," he said, his voice low but ironclad. "Whatever it is, we'll face it. Your mum didn't sacrifice herself for us to give up." Maya nodded, the violet in her eyes dimming but never fading. She sank back into her seat, silent, her small hand clasping Elliot's, a quiet bond between two souls tethered by fate. The skiff growled back to life, pressing through the desert toward that distant galaxy where answers might wait. Yet in the universe's shadows, a question lingered, unanswered. Reality has shattered, but who will piece it back together? Break. Time, the one's dust danced in the wind, settling softly on the skiff's floor, shrouding the cryptic gaze lurking in the night sky. Their journey wasn't over. Perhaps it had only just begun. The sand skiff vanished into the shadows of Port Helios, carrying Elliot and Maya and their solemn vow into the unknown. But back in the wreckage of Helix 9, red dust still fell, silently blanketing the broken remnants of the Sandglass. A faint violet shimmer flickered beneath the sand, dim, almost invisible, yet potent enough to spark a question. Did Lysa truly perish? Or had she become part of the very force she died to thwart? When the time reader surfaced in Maya's mind, was it merely the gaze of an ancient entity or a sign of something more? A mother who never truly left. Reality lies in fragments, its pieces scattered across the cosmos, awaiting someone or something to mend them. Elliot and Maya press on, but their tale is far from finished. Where will Lysa's legacy, humanity's unyielding spirit, guide them? And if she lingers still, woven into the threads of other realities, could they ever find her? What do you think? Has Lysa truly departed, or does she wait in the Sandglass's shadows? Is the time reader a foe, or just a watcher? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We want to hear your take as we shape this story's next chapter. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you won't miss what's coming.